You're in for a treat today because we have Kelly Baglaw on the show. She is an international attorney. She might correct me, but she's going to give you some really, really good advice today about how to do asset management protection overseas. And she's also going to talk about legal protection, lifestyle of your business, legal protection. So I'm really excited to have her on. So, a little bit about Kelly before we get started. Kelly has a bachelor's degree in business administration and international relations from California State University, Hayward. She also earned a bachelor's of law with honors from the University of Wales. Okay, now we're bragging. And a master's of law from Whittier Law School. Did I say that right? Whittier
You
Law
did,
School.
yes, yes.
And she has covered everything from general corporate counseling. She's very well diverse, y'all, to legal advice and offshore transactions. She's managed legal issues from domestic and international subsidiaries and has advised domestic and international clients on corporate and SEC. SEC matters very important right now. Everybody's getting busted from the SEC. And so Kelly has successfully founded Bagla Law Firm, APC. She loves advising business owners on the legal lifestyles of their business. I'm so excited to have you here, Kelly. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It truly is a pleasure to be on with you.
I just love your accent and I love your red wall, so I could be with you for a long time. But we've got a quick
Excellent.
show.
I was going to say, I've got about 5 hours.
So everybody listening, ask your questions. Make sure you get your questions out there, get your comments out there. Kelly's going to answer them all for you. Whoever asks questions on the show gets a book. Well, it doesn't get a book. It's 3 chapters from my book, Exit Rich. And Kelly, you have a book out there too called Go Legal Yourself.
I do, yes, Michelle. I'm actually an author of 6 books, but one of them is called Go Legal Yourself. It was a bestseller on Amazon, and it does talk about the legal life cycle of a business. It's it's quite intense. I address 4 major life cycles that any business is going to go through, and it's the best $20 you'll ever spend.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you 3 chapters from my book. Kelly, it's up to you if you want to get 3 chapters from your book. But anyway, get your questions out there. And so, Kelly, kind of let's start. What were you like as a little girl?
As a little girl, well, I was very spoiled, Michelle. I come from a very
My little
large
girl's
family.
spoiled too. So tell me it turns out okay.
I think I turned out pretty good, I would say. Yes. I have we're 7 siblings altogether, Michelle, 7 of us, and I am the baby. So yes, I had a very lovely, lovely childhood. I was spoiled as a young kid, but the one thing that was very, very consistent with mom and dad was that we should all get an education, and whatever we did with that education was up to us. But we needed to have the ability to stand on our own 2 feet and go in whichever direction. And once you have an education, nobody can ever take that away from you. You can just continue building upon that. But that's the background. All of my siblings have all gone into the medical profession in some form or respect, but I was the only one that went out and did law. I'm the only attorney so far in the family, and but we do come from an entrepreneur background. My dad was an entrepreneur, and my mom, she had her hands full with 7 of us, so she was a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, wow. So well, where did you grow up, first of all?
Born and raised in England, Birmingham. And for the listeners, if you haven't seen the show Peaky Blinders, I'm just putting in a plug there. That was set in Birmingham as well, and that was during the Industrial Revolution, so right after World War I and II.
Okay.
But it's a wonderful series if anyone is interested in that. But yes, born and raised in England, and I came out to the States probably about 25 years ago now, Michelle, and I came out for further education, fell in love with the place, and applied for all those visas and what have you. And then my education kind of went back and forth, as you just read. I had finished high school in England, which we all do at the age of 16. Came out to the States, did some further education here. Mom said I was gone way too long, so I went back home and I took advantage of that time. Went to law school,
What
and
made you decide on law school? Do you have any? attorneys in the family?
No, no, I'm the only one. It
Okay.
must have been, so I knew at the age of 5, and don't ask me how, Michelle. I knew at the age of 5 that I always wanted to be a lawyer, always. I think I must have seen this incredible show on TV growing up. It was called The Queen's Counsel. And so this barrister would walk into court, and save the day. And I always was sort of very, very attracted towards all of these positive and successful outcomes that he had. And since dad was an entrepreneur, I had a spirit of becoming an entrepreneur. I loved how he treated his employees and his customers and clients. And so
Mhm.
I definitely wanted that business background, but I wanted to pursue law. And here I am
Here
several
you
years
are.
later.
All right, and you've had a fabulous career. So you do have quite the education and career. Now you're a business owner. What is the biggest takeaway from your journey that you think the listeners can benefit? Some golden nuggets from your journey.
I think the biggest takeaway is never, ever, ever let anyone else tell you that you cannot become something that you want to be. I know that's vague, but this was when I was going through college and I had taken a business law class. This was, again, college, not law school, not graduate school, but college. And I wasn't doing too well. So the counselor called me in and said, "Oh, well, little Miss Kelly, what is it that you want to become?" "Well, I want to be a lawyer, and that's what I'm going to be." Well, the counselor had the audacity to say to me, "You're not doing too well in this business law class. Maybe you should change your discipline. Maybe you should go into liberal arts or do something other than law." And I looked at him, Michelle, and I said, "Maybe you're not the counselor for me." And that was the last time I ever went to a counselor. I stuck to my guns, and when I say I absolutely love practicing law, I get goosies when I say that because it's still true today. Next year, I would have been practicing for 20 years, Michelle, 20 years as a lawyer. And if I had listened to that counselor back then, my
Mhm.
entire life, the life that I'm living right now, I'm literally living the American dream. I talk about that on my shows and I talk about that in my interviews as well. That American dream is alive and well. An example of it. And anyone, if you want to become something, America is the country for you to become whatever you want. And so don't ever let anybody say to you, you can't do this or you can't do that.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And everybody has an opinion, right?
Exactly.
So you really should you really should follow your dream. And if you want to get advice, then you should go in that industry and actually get firsthand advice rather than a counselor that's sitting there being a counselor.
Right.
So yeah, so if you're thinking about going to law school, talk to Kelly.
Talk to me. I would love to.
Talk to somebody in that space. Don't just go talk to a professor who teaches but doesn't practice, or a counselor who just counsels and has never really been in that industry or really any other industry. So it's really important to seek out your industry when you're thinking about something. And 5 years old is pretty impressive because my daughter, she thinks she wants to be a cop. We can't. So we're working on that.
Right.
All right, so your career has spanned various areas of law, from corporation to SEC matters, intellectual property. How did your diversified legal background really influence your approach to advising clients? Because so many attorneys, and this is what I find when I talk to attorneys, and I've got lots of different attorneys on payroll, and you talk to one, and it's really not their core competency, but they try and they guess and I do some research. But at the end of the day, this is probably not the best one to hire, right? And
Absolutely.
but this happens time and time and time again. One of my attorneys that's on payroll says, "Oh, I can help you with the estate." I'm like, "But do you specialize in estate? Do you specialize in all?" "Well, no, but we've done a little bit." And I go, "I don't want dabblers. I want somebody that actually does it." So you have such a diversified background. How does that help you, with your clients? And do you go outside of your wheelhouse to help someone if it's not really your true core competency?
That's a great question, Michelle. I have, I have done Instagram reels where I'm saying to other professionals, stay in your lane. Stay
Mm.
in your lane, especially CPAs. CPAs, all respect to them, but I wouldn't go out and do my clients' taxes. I could. I'm an educated woman. I have 4 degrees under my belt. I can absolutely go out and do their taxes. Am I going to? Absolutely not. It's not my expertise. Plus, I don't want to be learning the newest and greatest IRS laws
You
and
don't want
rules
to
and
read the IRS
regulations, right?
code. You don't want to read the IRS
Ex-
code every year.
I know. I mean, I'm sure it's so sexy, right, Michelle? I'm sure it is, but no, no, definitely not. But yet CPAs are more than willing to incorporate their clients for them by filing a piece of paper with a jurisdiction with a state does not mean that you are incorporated, and it doesn't mean that you're protected when you get sued. Going back to my experience, I was very, very fortunate and very blessed to actually start my legal career with the largest international law firm in the world, Baker and McKenzie at the time. We were in 69 countries. We had over uh, 4,000 attorneys worldwide. And I was brand new and I was putting in, 16, 17 hours a day. And I loved it. And they gave me a Blackberry, Michelle, and they gave me a computer, right? Little did I know that was an electronic leash around me, but I was excited. I was learning everything. And because of my business background, and that's what I had my undergrad in, I was always attracted to the business side of law. I was their corporate and securities attorney, meaning that we would handle anything from business formation to corporate structuring to M&A work, mergers and acquisitions, and then we would actually help them protect their intellectual property as well, such through licensing agreements, through registering trademarks for them, for filing patents for them. I do not file patents. That directly needs to go to a patent attorney just because of their expertise. And so, as I was learning my trade, if you will, I really learned from some of these brilliant minds from across the world. It wasn't just in the US. So I got a variety of actually how to do some business outside of the US fairly early on.
Mhm.
And now because law school does not teach you how to become a business owner, how to run a law firm, how to do anything pertaining to business itself, you have to learn by yourself. And so when I went out on my own,
Or with a
it's
mentor who owns a business.
right, exactly. When I went out on my own, I literally had to learn everything by myself, right? And since then, like I said, it's 20 years now. I have had my firm for 14 years, Michelle, and I've loved every moment of it. So literally, I don't just bring the corporate side, the legal side to the table. I bring my business experience to the table too. So I can talk intelligently from a business owner's perspective. So I understand. And I've always said it takes an entrepreneur to understand the needs of another entrepreneur. So
Mhm.
when you say there are thousands of attorneys out there, absolutely, and the majority of them all here in California. I am I am I am talking to you from San Diego, beautiful San Diego, sunny California.
Okay,
But
okay. Now, the people in the north and even me in the south, we're at 50 degrees outside. Don't really want to hear that.
I'm sure. Can you see I'm wearing short sleeves, right?
I'm in 2 layers here.
I love it when I get a chance to rub that in. But yes, I love it. I surround myself with other expertise, other lawyers, such as patent lawyers, such as estate planning lawyers, such as divorce lawyers, such as immigration lawyers. I don't touch that. I do what I do absolutely great. In fact, I am known as the queen of business law. And it was my clients that gave me that name affectionately. And I really stick to my own lane. I stay
Mhm.
within my own lane, but I do bring the business advice aspect to the table as well, coupled with legal.
Great, wonderful. So let's kind of dive into what we want to talk about today. And obviously, you're very well educated and you have worked from some big law firms. I had to cut down that bio a little bit. But let's dig into asset management protection overseas. because
Yes.
business owners are always looking for asset protection, and a lot of them are just like stuck in the USA, and we don't have to be stuck in the USA. We don't have to be stuck in this bowl, right? There's a whole big world out there. So let's talk a little bit about asset management protection, and this is your core competency, right?
Absolutely, it is. Yes. Anything from business formation to asset protection. And the best asset protection any US business owner could ever have. And in fact, this goes to the international businesses also, because there are certain jurisdictions in the world that are literally impenetrable. When I say that word, and this is coming from a lawyer, so that means it's something, it's got clout behind it. There are a couple of jurisdictions. So, what we do is there are jurisdictions such as the island of Nevis, the island of Belize, and the best one to be in is the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands has an incredible law, basically,
The
that
cork or
protects
the cork?
Cook Islands.
COK, the Cook Islands?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
yes. So
Yeah.
the
I've
Cook
been in
Islands.
Nevis, I've been in Belize, I haven't been to the Cook Islands. I actually renew my vows in Nevis.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, we have incorporated clients in Nevis and Belize as well, but the
Okay,
majority of it is always in the Cook Islands.
okay.
The way the Cook Islands work is that they actually have local attorneys, local law offices there that become co trustee on, let's say, a living trust. So let's step back a bit here. Let's say that we have a US business owner and they have probably about, anything from 5 million all the way up, and they have earned the right to, they've paid their taxes, they've got profits, and they're also in a risky business, right? So, for example, if you're a doctor and you provide services to inmates, that's a risky business. Inmates have time on their hands and that's all they have. So if they are going to sue someone, it's going to be the doctor and the people that the doctor sends in, because either their tooth isn't better or they're still in pain or what have you. And so because of
That's a good point you just brought up because I would have never thought about that. I thought, look, you're an inmate, you're in prison, you're not suing anybody.
oh all day, every day, because that's all they do. They want to become their own lawyers.
Wow, that's a
Ye-
great point that I didn't even realize. Okay,
Yes,
go
yes.
on. This is
So
interesting.
so with this doctor, obviously is in a very, very risky business. So we had actually done some offshore asset protection for him. What I mean by that is we set up a trust in the Cook Islands for him. After doing some more maneuvering, where we set up a couple of LLCs in Nevis for him, eventually the Cook Islands Trust will hold all of his assets, everything that is in the USA. So now, if he gets sued, or should I say, when he gets sued, Michelle, because we do live in a sue happy country,
We do.
when he gets sued, he's not going to be losing all of his life's work and his earnings and savings, because, say, they go to court and the judge says, you need to, Mr. Doctor so and so, you need to bring your assets back. So the opposing counsel can issue a judgment. Well, the doctor can request from the Cook Islands to say, can you bring my assets back? And then the actual trustees, the co-trustees, will say, well, no, we don't have to do that. One, we know that you're in a lawsuit, and two, we don't comply with US law. The Cook Islands does not recognize US law, which means now, even if there's a judgment against you here in the US, or any of the international business owners that are listening, there's a judgment against you and your assets are in the Cook Islands, anyone can go to the Cook Islands and say, okay, we have a judgment against the doctor's assets and we're here to enforce it. The Cook Islands are going to basically look at you and say, that's just a piece of paper. We don't recognize it. Therefore, we're not going to give you a shred of information. Everything is confidential 100%. There has never, ever been a case where any of these Cook Island trusts have been penetrated and also those assets have been lost. Never been a case. So we obviously the Cook Islands have to do their due diligence on each and every person. There's a risk because they put their name behind it. And this is their entire business. Even the government is involved because the law firms have to do a background check with the government to make sure that they are the right fiduciaries to be able to manage people's assets offshore. So there's structure in place, there's legal in place. There are companies that have been practicing there for 40 plus years. So you build a relationship with them. But the ultimate place for anyone to hold all of their assets, physical, um, on paper, tangible, intangible, would be the Cook Islands. The beauty about the Cook Islands too, Michelle, is that if you have liquid cash, and obviously liquid cash is going to remain in the US bank accounts, which means that US has full control over your liquid cash.
Right.
So now what do you do with that cash? You just don't go out and buy another property if you don't have to. You can actually open a Cook Islands bank account with the bank there that can also act as your investment bank. So your money's not just sitting there making absolutely nothing. They can reinvest that with the professionals that manage the bank there as well. So now you have asset protection both for your physical and your liquid cash.
So how does that liquid cash work for like operating expenses? Or is a doctor, is the client keeping, or the business owner, entrepreneur keeping the cash in the bank in the USA for operating expenses, but maybe anything in excess to that, keep it in the Cook Islands? Is that how that's working?
Absolutely, because every corporation has to have some working capital. And
Of
if
course.
you undercapitalize that, that could be one of the triggering events to pierce the corporate veil. So
Mhm,
absolutely, we have to keep maybe three to 6 months worth, at least 3 months worth of expenses in the business bank account in the US. And
mhm.
then all the profits after taxes, they all go to the offshore account. Now, there's a huge difference, Michelle, between asset hiding and asset protection. We do asset protection and not hiding. The best time to do asset protection is now. It's today. The
Mhm.
worst time to do asset protection is when you're
Exactly.
served.
Yeah. When you're served. So, lots of questions here, lots to unpack. First and foremost, who has the control over, because you've heard of DSTs, deferred sales trusts, and things of that nature. Who has the control over um, that protection in Cook Island? Is it the trustee, or is it the business owner? Does it take two signatures? How does that work?
So it would be both. It would be the actual business owner has full control over the trust and the trust asset. So the business owner is a trustee, but there's a
Okay.
co-trustee because that's the law of the Cook Islands. You must have a co-trustee, and that's
Mhm.
usually the law firm. The
Okay.
reason for that is, again, if there's a potential lawsuit or if there's anything remotely close to that, the co trustee in the Cook Islands will remove the trustee, the business owner, from the trust temporarily. And now they literally can say to the judge, Judge, I don't own anything. I have no control over my assets whatsoever. So now, once the lawsuit has been concluded, it goes away or it's settled, the business owner is added back as a trustee to the trust
Has there
itself.
ever been any instances where that doesn't happen and a co-trustee keeps control over that trust and doesn't add the business owner back onto that?
Absolutely not. Again, Michelle, this isn't just a rogue company or a couple of rogue companies trying to protect assets in the Cook Islands. It's from the government down. So the government has done their due diligence on all of these co-trustees, if you will. And so if that was the case, everybody who was somebody and had capital and money would pull out of the Cook Islands.
Of
So
course.
that's never happened. The Cook Islands, again, they hold strong when it comes to their laws. They protect assets, and they back their clients up. They do not disclose any confidential information. Probably you might remember this, maybe about 5 to 8 years ago, everybody was putting their money in the Swiss bank account.
Of course.
Then Switzerland came out and said, "Oh well, we are going to start reporting to the US
Mm.
who our US bank holders are." So there goes the confidentiality. And the Swiss bank accounts, they lost so much business from the US. There's nothing like that preventing the Cook Islands.
So I still hear business owners say, and even friends of mine, I'm going to Switzerland. I'm putting all my money in the Swiss banks, da da da. And not too many people mention the Cook Islands. So is it still the best kept secret out there? I mean, why do more people not don't know about it?
It is the best kept secret out there. It's again, it's been around for a while, and it
How long
really
has it been
takes.
around? How long has it been around? Did you say 40 years?
That's just one company that's been operating there. They've been doing
Oh,
this for hundreds of years, right?
hundreds
This
of
is
years.
exactly,
Okay.
and when when people the only reason why a business owner would hear about the Cook Islands is if they actually spoke to an asset protection lawyer. They're not going to hear about it from an estate planning lawyer, like you said, right? Stay in your lane. So
Mhm.
if you're if and it used to be, like I said, as far as hard cash liquid goes, they would put it in the Swiss bank accounts, but they also report now to the US. But
Mhm.
that's not a requirement for the Cook Islands.
So let's talk about timing, right? So let's say the doctor has just say somebody got hurt. Let's say it's a workers' comp issue. And this actually happened in one of my clinics. And somebody fell over a stool, but they actually fell over a stool that they placed there. And it was really them setting us up. But if we were to go move assets while we knew that happened, even before the lawsuit was filed, then in the US, they go back to like 9 months, even before the incident occurred to see if anything was moved. Do they also do that in the Cook Islands?
No, no.
So
As
if you have a lawsuit, a pending lawsuit, or something's coming down the pipeline, you can go in and take all those assets right now, move them to Cook Island, and nothing can be done. Even let's say you're about to have a lawsuit filed in the next 30 to 60 days.
exactly, because threatening a lawsuit isn't being actually served through a lawsuit. Getting a threatening demand letter is not being served. Up until the second you are served, you can do asset protection, and you do not need to disclose any of the reasons to the court why, because you were planning on this, 5 years ago. You were planning on this a year ago. You just haven't gotten round to it, so that you do not have to there's no time frame for someone to say, okay, we're going to sue you, and then 6 months later they do, but you just sit back 6 months saying, okay, they're going to sue me, I can't do anything with
But
my
in the
asset.
United States, that's kind of the law, right? Like if
It's
you go
not though,
to
Michelle. It's not. The law is, once you have been served with a lawsuit, now you cannot do any moving about of your assets, because that will
so
absolutely
one
be
of my clients
considered
got bad advice from an attorney recently.
right.
That's what I'm saying. Stay in your lane, attorney.
Stay in your
Stay in
lane.
your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah,
Exactly.
one of my clients has a suit pending, and the advice was don't move any assets because legally in the United States they can go back as far as 9 months, and you're saying that's not the case.
Right.
Hmm. Okay. So everybody, listen up. You need to call Kelly. So it's not until you're actually filed. You can move those assets at any time, even if there's a pending divorce. Maybe you can move those assets at any time until the suit has actually been filed.
Well, during divorce, as
That's a
soon
little bit
as
different.
that
Yeah.
would be different, as soon as the papers have been filed with the court,
Okay.
then that you cannot move any
So
assets
you
about.
can move anything you want before you've been served.
Exactly.
Okay, so attorneys are given really bad information in the USA. And then to have that further asset protection, you can actually go to the Cook Islands. Now, let's say you've been served. Can you then move all your assets to the Cook Island? No.
No,
Okay.
the Cook Islands, because they do their homework on individuals, they don't just accept anyone,
Okay.
and you have to disclose to them, one, uh, is there threatening litigation? Have you actually been served? Have you, do you have a criminal background? They take into everything into consideration. So if you've been served and then you want to start moving your assets, that's just fraud at that point, and everything will be undone through the courts, the U.S. courts, because now you're stepping into committing fraud rather than asset protection.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. What's the process? What's the timing process to move assets over the cork?
It
What's
can
the steps?
take,
What's the process? Does somebody reach
yes,
out to you for that? Or can somebody
yes.
just reach out to Cork Company on their own?
So they would go through me because my firm has established a relationship with the Cook Islands. So they would go through me. We would, again, it's coupled with domestic asset protection, and then you put the cherry on top, which is the Cook Islands. Basically, you wrap it all up with a pretty bow that nobody can pull apart, right? And that's the Cook Islands. But yes, the timing on this, Michelle, you're probably looking at about maybe 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And what's the fees associated with,
The fees
well,
can
so you have your
vary.
own fees to package it up and put that beautiful red bow on it, and then
Right,
you got the Cook Islands fees.
right. So really collectively together, you're probably looking at anywhere from maybe, again, depending on the assets, I'll give you a ballpark figure. It can be anywhere from 30K to probably 60 or 70K, depending on the assets that you want to protect.
To set
Now,
everything up.
right. All of it included. Now, if you think that, 30,000 or 70,000 is a lot of money, well, consider how much you're going to be paying and how much you're going to be losing once you do get sued, because that those assets are really the only assets that you've accumulated throughout your career. And to be able
Mhm.
to lose a home that's worth $5 million to a lawsuit that you could have protected, it's really a no-brainer.
Well, a lot of business owners, so let's take a step back because a lot of business owners think, well, my home's protected anyway because I have these LLCs, I have these corporations, I haven't pierced a corporate bell, I haven't signed a personal guarantee, et cetera, et cetera. Is that accurate?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
firing all my attorneys and hiring you. Okay, so they can still pierce that corporate veil and go over your home asset, even though you really haven't pierced the corporate veil. How is that possible?
Okay. Again, the everything depends, right? Anytime you ask a lawyer, how is this possible, or how is this done? Everything depends. So
And
one,
you get 10 different lawyers and ask them the question, you're going to get 10 different answers.
exactly, right? One, you have to make sure, because we are a business formation and asset protection law firm, we make sure, again, it's not about just filing the articles or registering your company with a state secretary and now you're incorporated. There's something called corporate compliance. So,
Mhm,
for example, let's just pick a corporation. If somebody wants to incorporate as a regular C corporation, you can file the articles in California. You can go to the Secretary of State's website. You can take a look at the form, fill out that form, and submit it online. And then now they think that, okay, I'm protected, I'm incorporated, I can start running my business. But under California Corporations Code, it specifically says that you have to treat your corporation completely separate from yourself, such as yourself, right? Michelle, you are an individual. I'm
mhm,
an individual. You
mhm,
have a social security number. You are able to make decisions for yourself. You can enter into contracts. You can
mhm,
sue. You can be sued. You're an individual.
mhm.
Your other family members aren't dragged into that. It's just you as an individual. Corporations are exactly the same thing under law. They are separate entities that can sue, be sued, enter into contracts, have its own social security number, which is the EIN. And then you have to have the internal documents. So for a corporation, you have to have bylaws, you have to have organizational minutes, you have to do annual minutes to
And
appoint the
that's where most
directors.
business owners fall short.
Exactly. And that's it. It's right there that's how they get pierced. The corporate veil gets pierced right there because they're not following corporate compliance. And it's that simple.
So let's define the assets in Cook Island. So it would be your home, correct? It could be your home. It could be your savings. It can't be your financial portfolio, right? It can't be your stocks, your bonds, or your investments, right?
Absolutely it can
It
because
can be. So you can
because
take all
now
your entire financial portfolio and put that in the Cook Islands.
because you can set up an LLC to hold your financial portfolio, and then the owners of that LLC would be the Cook Islands entity.
So your financial portfolio, everything could be held in in the Cook Islands.
Yes.
Okay. And now what about like other proprietary assets? We're talking about federal trademarks, we're talking about patents, we're talking about, things that make your company unique, databases, all kinds of different assets that you don't want to commingle with your corporation because if you do get sued, you don't want to lose your patents, you don't want to lose your all of your IP or intellectual property. So all of that would be considered an asset as well in the Cook Islands?
Absolutely. So what I would do in that situation, because patents are extremely valuable, and you just nailed it. When your corporation gets sued, you do not want these valuable assets to be targeted by creditors. So those valuable assets, such as a trademark that you know has got value to it, such as
A
a patent,
global
definitely.
trademark too, not just a federal trademark, y'all.
Yes.
To my listeners now, it's just not the federal trademark, but the global trademark too.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. The patents, the trademarks, the any type of intellectual property software that you've just created, maybe for your app, maybe you want to license this later on. I
Mhm,
always advise clients those very valuable items they need to be separated out of the corporation, put
mhm.
in an entity all by itself, and then that entity would license the rights to the corporation. So now when the corporation gets sued, it doesn't own the intellectual
Right.
property assets, it's just a license that they have.
Right. I
And
tell my
those
clients the same thing. So I do practice law just on TV, not in real life. But yeah, I tell my clients the same thing. But you've taken it one step forward and said, if you really want that asset protection, put it in the Cook Islands.
exactly, yes.
Okay. And then
Yes.
same thing with money. So your whole financial portfolio, your cash, everything. What's the risk?
That's the beauty about it. There is no risk. If you want to terminate anything that you've done in the Cook Islands and you want to bring your assets back to the USA, you can do that at any time, 100%. It's not even close to it's not a irrevocable trust where you have no say whatsoever and it goes on forever and ever and ever. You actually have 100% control over all of your assets, and you can bring them back if you choose to. There are obviously fees that you would have to pay, which you'd pay to any state that you would be incorporated in. So there are fees that you pay to the state, the government of the Cook Islands, and fees that you would pay to the law firm where they are doing minutes for you and what have you. Um,
Mhm.
and but other than that, there is zero risk in moving
What's
assets.
the time frame for getting your assets out? And can you name a beneficiary? So let's say, you have a will. Can you have a beneficiary that they get control and they're now the trustee of that Cook Island estate?
Absolutely, you would have to name beneficiaries, right?
Okay,
You
you
would
have
be.
beneficiaries, right?
Yes, so there would be beneficiaries, just the way it would work here in the US. You have the creators of the trust, you've got the trustees who manage the trust, then you've got the beneficiaries who actually receive the assets upon someone's passing. Same thing. So yes, beneficiaries would be listed as well.
Okay. So, how easy is it to transfer money back and forth from the Cook Islands to the U.S.?
It's fairly easy, fairly easy. There's a you basically make the request from your bank account, and then that money is wired over to the Cook Islands bank account, and it's that simple.
So when does countries like the U.S. start cracking down on the Cook Islands and saying this isn't right? Or U.S. citizens are hiding money. Well, we call it's not really hiding; it's asset protection because you know where it is. But at what point does the U.S. really say enough is enough and enforce sanctions and other things on the Cook Island?
I don't think they would ever do that just because the Cook Islands is known for asset protection. One, like I said, they do
It's
not
known, but nobody
recognize.
knows about it.
They do not recognize US law, Michelle. That's the beauty about all of this. So, US law doesn't have any authority over the Cook Islands at all. They cannot threaten them, they cannot tell them to release information. They can't do any of that. So I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So we have a lot of international listeners. So this is not just for the United States, this is worldwide, right? So
Absolutely.
any country could invest in asset protection in the Cook Islands.
Absolutely, Michelle. We do represent international clients that want to operate in the US. So we've helped quite a bit of international companies
Mhm.
enter the USA. I've actually written a book. It's called Doing Business in the United States. And this is for my international clients. And anyone that is listening, you can go to my website and actually download a free copy of that book. Very, very helpful. And even if you are doing business here in the USA, that book is great. It covers the main
What's the name of the
points.
book again?
Doing Business in the United States.
If somebody on my team can put that in the show notes, that would be great. And the website is
It's on Amazon. Or
on
you can go directly to my website too, which is baglalaw.com.
not Bagala, but Bagla.
Bagla. We
Bagala.
usually say baglalaw.com.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about DSTs real quick. So when somebody goes to sell their business, one of the number one reasons that sellers back out of selling their company is because of tax liability, right? Everybody wants to mitigate their risk when it comes to taxes because when you're paying capital gains, you're talking about 30, 40%, right? And so millions upon millions of dollars is coming off the top, leaving business owners with very little. And a lot of times business owners are like, I'll just keep my business. So DSTs can come in and help defer those taxes. It's called a deferred sales trust, and there's a trustee there, and then you have the business owner. It takes two though. It takes the trustee and the business owner to sign off on something, so you don't have full control like she's saying you do in the Cook Islands. Is there a methodology or a tool or something in the Cook Islands that kind of can do the same thing when you're selling your business?
So when you're selling a business, if anyone's selling a business, there's
No,
usually
everybody is through Michelle Saller Tucker to Saller Tucker Farm, Exit Rich.
perfect. So when they are selling their business, Michelle, right?
Right.
There's usually a asset sale or there's a stock sale. And the asset sale,
98% sales are asset sales. I've been doing this for 23 years. So in my career, it's been, yeah, most are assets.
right. And usually out of the assets, because assets are characterized differently too under the IRS code.
Correct.
So, which one is really going to be taxed the least, and which one can you allocate the most of the purchase price to?
Mhm.
In my experience and working with CPAs, and you probably know this anyways, is that goodwill, like goodwill, is
Mhm.
usually the one that will you're paying for.
Mhm.
The majority of the purchase price. So,
Mhm.
so let's just say you're selling your business for $5 million. Out of the 5 million, maybe 4 million will go towards goodwill. That's how much valuable it is, depending on the the um, the actual reputation of the company.
Mhm.
How long has it been in business?
Mhm.
Is it
Sure.
international? So you take all that into consideration.
Mhm.
But there's ways to maybe mitigate some of that taxes that you had just mentioned. But the Cook Islands, no, I don't know
That's
of anything
not.
pertaining to that over there.
Okay, yeah. So stick with the DSTs, everybody. Get with me if you're interested in the DST information. And so, and yeah, because sellers love to allocate the purchase price towards goodwill. Buyers want to allocate it towards fixed assets. And so there's always, that argument there. Okay, so moving on, let's ask a few questions here. Is there anything else you want to add about Cook Islands? And I will just say brilliant, 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 because I feel like I know a lot about asset protection. And I didn't know about the Cook Islands. So, and I think a lot of people didn't know about that. So, brilliant information today that you've shared with our listeners. Anything you would like to add to that before we move on?
Just to say that if anyone's considering going to the Cook Islands for asset protection, do not do it on your own. Do
Why is
not
that? Why is
do
that?
not do it on your own, and do not reach out to someone that you are not familiar with, that has not been referred to you. You're dealing with your assets, and you don't want to just hand those over to someone that's not been vetted. That would be my only caveat on the Cook Islands. Just know who you're going through and dealing with.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's again the best place to do asset protection.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. So there's quite a few questions here. Let's see. Let's get to some of these. Um, let's see. Let's go to the name I can't pronounce. I don't know if this is a friend of yours, Kelly. Can't pronounce that name. I'm on this one right here, Kelly. So they're asking, where can entrepreneurs stay up to date with changing legal requirements in their industry? Do you see the name, Kelly?
I do see the name, and I
Can
don't
you pronounce it?
believe uh,
Last name looks like
one.
Zhu.
I'm so sorry, I do not, but I'm happy to answer the question.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, what
Uh,
can entrepreneurs stay up to date with the changing legal requirements in their specific industry?
Well, first thing I would say is join an association in your industry. There is an association for everything. Did you know there's an association for window washers?
I know there's an association for absolutely everything. There is one for the industry. Yeah, 1,000%.
Right, exactly. So, one is definitely join your local association because you can get a lot of information on your industry itself. It's a great, great idea to do that. Plus, you're networking with like minded people and you never know who you're going to meet. And two, I would actually either go to the California Secretary of State website. They have particular law pertaining to different industries as well. So that would be a great resource for any entrepreneur to go to.
That's wonderful. Perfect. Yeah, and there are a lot of questions here. I have another question. What about AI? How do you see AI affecting the legal community? How do you see it affecting, business owners, entrepreneurs? What's your thoughts on AI?
It's such an interesting topic, right? AI obviously is supposed to make everyone's life better, but it will never, ever, ever, and I'm saying this with full confidence, it will never, ever replace attorneys. Why is that? Or anyone that uses cognitive thinking. Why is that? We posed a question to AI. We posed a question saying, which state should we incorporate in? If we live and work in California, do we incorporate in California or do we incorporate in Delaware? Right? It said you should definitely incorporate in California. Well, it didn't tell you, it doesn't say to you there are other options, right? You can incorporate in Delaware, you can file as a foreign corporation in California, you still have to pay the $800 franchise tax, and then why would you do that, right? So there isn't a way for AI to ever replace me. But
I
as
do the same thing.
yeah,
People
exactly.
say AI is going to replace M&A, mergers and acquisitions advisors. I'm like, no, they're not. No, it's not. Who's going to deal with the emotional side of selling a company?
Exactly,
Who's going to deal with
exactly.
the crazy family members? Who's going to deal with the, employees that are threatening to quit? AI is never going to do that.
Exactly. And I have reviewed contracts where AI has written them, and then I've been presented with a contract and I'm just poking holes through it. And you can tell as well, especially with our industry. I've been doing this for a while. I can tell whether a contract or an agreement is written by an attorney or not, whether someone has copied and pasted or not. And then now AI written
But
contracts
they've
too.
already been using templates where they forget to change things.
But it's different though, Michelle. The way AI writes things, you can tell it to be aggressive, you can tell it to be less aggressive, you can tell it to be nice. And they use these certain words, but it's a great tool for entrepreneurs to use, but not for them to replace their attorneys with.
No, I don't think so. Not to place their attorneys with. And CPAs and obviously M&A, what I do, mergers and
Right.
acquisitions, but I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a doctor. I'm
Yes.
a nurse. I'm an attorney and a CPA.
Right.
We're all of everything wrapped up into one. All right, so I really do want to kind of jump into, one thing's funny too is you're hearing a lot of lawsuits right now or a lot of issues with judges where the attorneys are walking in with an AI document. What do you call it? A pleading or what? I forget the terminology, but a pleading, and they're
A
like,
brief.
yeah, a brief, and they're saying this is incorrect. This is not accurate.
Right.
And so
Right.
judges are up on this too. So you got
And
to be very careful.
especially if someone's using old law as opposed to the brand new law that just superseded the
Well,
old
you think
law.
law does change, right?
Yes, yes.
People think law stays around. Stephen asked a question. He says, "Are there any industry dash specific legal considerations that entrepreneurs in certain fields should be aware of, or is it all pretty baseline?"
I'm not understanding the question.
Neither am I, Stefan. Are there any industry dash specific legal considerations? I don't know what he means by dash. Let's take out dash. Are there any industry-specific legal considerations that entrepreneurs in certain fields should be aware of, or is it all pretty baseline?
Okay, so I'm going to take a guess at that question. I'm going to try to answer what I
We can
think I
do
heard.
multiple choice. Is it A?
E-
Is it B?
exactly. I think when it comes
Oh,
to
you know what? He rewrote it. Are there
okay,
any industry-specific legal considerations that entrepreneurs in certain fields should be aware of? Okay.
right. So the basic foundation that any entrepreneur really needs to set first is their legal foundation. That has to be strong. And that was what I was referring to, having your internal documents, following corporate compliance, making sure that your corporation cannot be pierced by anyone. What opposing counsel does nowadays, and you're probably familiar with this, is they will sue anyone and everyone related to that industry. They will sue you as an officer, they will sue you as an individual, and then it's up to you to say, listen, judge, I acted and behaved as an officer all the way through. I did not take any steps outside my corporate role. And so now you're basically explaining that you've done what you're supposed to do as a corporate officer. But if someone steps outside of their corporate authority, and acts on behalf of the company without the company's authority, then that person would be personally liable, personally. And so there's so many ways that one could pierce the corporate veil. We always start off by doing a corporate review of the documents to make sure that you have all of the internal documents. One document in particular, Michelle, I have to mention this on your show, is that when you are forming a corporation, a C Corp, S Corp, doesn't matter, and you are being issued stock as a founder, you must have a stock certificate with exemptions. So let
Mhm,
me step back for a second. And most entrepreneurs don't know this, and they get themselves in trouble all the time. So
mhm.
that there's a branch of the government called the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. They oversee all types of issuance of
And they're
stock.
scary. They can be very scary.
They are very scary. Absolutely. They are very scary. And guess who started the SEC back in the 1930s, 1920s? It was John F. Kennedy's father.
Mm,
He ran the SEC. So basically, back then when it started, because the government didn't want innocent individuals being taken advantage of, because when you would give money to a company for stock, are they actually getting stock back, and how are you recording this, and where are you registering this, that you actually have invested in a company and you are a stock owner? Well, the SEC said every business that's incorporated, every business that's issuing stock must register with us. Back then, registration cost an arm and a leg. So if you had two or three or $400,000 lying around, sure, use that to go register. But small businesses complained. They said, there's no way that we have that much money lying around. So the SEC said, fine, you don't have to register with us, but you have to fall under these exemptions. So those exemptions, either you file with the SEC or you use a document with those exemptions in that document. And it's usually the founder's restricted stock purchase agreement, or it's a shareholder agreement, something to evidence that there was money for stock. Now, if neither of those are done, you will get fines, fees, and penalties from the SEC. Plus, this is the kicker, 1 year in prison.
oh, all right. So let's repeat that real quick. Let's shorten that so we can put that in the show notes because I think that's very important. We also want to add to the show notes right now. Somebody on my team add about Cook Island. It's the best place for asset management protection. Don't do it alone. And then let's add um, if you're a stockholder in your company, you must have a stock certificate with those exemptions. Is that correct?
A shareholder agreement or a stock agreement
A shareholder
with
agreement
exemptions.
with
Yes,
exemptions. Okay, so you must have that. I can guarantee that most of y'all don't have that.
exactly.
It's like most of y'all don't have transferable contracts when you go to sell your company. So let's
That's
make
the
sure.
worst. That's the
Oh,
worst.
that is the worst. I've been doing this for 23 years, and in 23 years, I've met two business owners that actually got it right.
Mhm.
So that's one of the biggest things that I specifically educate on because most sales are asset sales and they're not transferable. And when you have to go get a consent to transfer, you just let the cat out of the bag and tell all your clients that you're selling your company.
Exactly. Except plus now you have to go running
Yeah,
around to each and every client and saying, I'm selling my business. Is that okay with you? That's the last thing you ever want. You're taking the value away from what your business is worth.
a
Because
thousand percent.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can have a customer say, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to sign this contract. Now you've just lost that added value that
Well,
a
you
seller
lost
would have
a
paid
piece
for
of
it.
your EBITDA. Your
Yeah,
EBITDA, your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization,
exactly.
decrease significantly when you lose a contract.
Right.
So contracts are like mailbox money, especially if they're written correctly. And buyers want contracts in place. They want reoccurring models. They want subscription models. Hayden, and I think this is a very good question too. Hayden asks, what is the best way to protect intellectual property such as trademarks and copyrights on a limited budget? So many business owners are starting out and they're like, oh my gosh, I only have so much money, and I always say, they say, I can't afford to pay. And I always tell them what you said earlier, you can't afford not to pay, but how can they do asset protection on a limited budget?
I would I would not advise them to hold it in their own name. Okay, because now
Or what in their own name?
the title to the registered trademarks or
Or
copyrights, right?
trademark. Yeah, have that in a separate LLC.
Exactly. So, for example, to begin with, if you're just starting out, the corporation should really own the registered mark. If you have plans on franchising your business, or if you have plans on licensing rights of your business, you must own the name. The company must own the name. So it does have the legal right to give to someone to say, "I'm granting you a license. You can use my intellectual property, my trademark." Now, if you're just starting out, the company itself can own it. But once you start making a lot more money and you think this is, that there's risk involved, at that time, absolutely split it out into a separate LLC. But that there has to be an extra step there, right? So now the LLC would hold the title to all the intellectual property. There has to be a license agreement going back to the corporation. Without a license agreement or a right to grant somebody the rights to use that, it's really just going to be one and the same. And if the corporation's pierced, the LLC can be pierced too. So that's why it's really important to make sure that there is authority from one entity. Remember, they're all separate entities. They all have to provide authority from the LLC to the corporation saying, here's a license, you can use the intellectual property we hold.
Yeah, business owners don't know that. They're like, oh, I can just set up another LLC with all of my IP, and which is separate from my corporation. So now I'm not piercing a corporate veil, but they don't understand the correlation of that agreement from one LLC to the next. And so that's very important. Also, look, even just talking to, I was already convinced. You talk to different attorneys, you get different opinions. It's very difficult for a business owner to decipher who is right, who is accurate. They all think they're right, but who is really accurate? Who really is giving you the right advice? Because there's so many attorneys that are giving out their opinions that are not necessarily correct. I already told you some. You're like, no, that's not right. No, that's not right. That's not right. How can a business owner protect themselves? And other than hiring you and trying to send you business, but other than hiring you, how do they do their due diligence? Because I don't know, some clients might say, well, gosh, I can't afford her. How do they go out and really legally protect themselves and make sure they are getting that right attorney, make sure they are getting the right advice, make sure they got somebody who's staying in their lane and that is their true core competency, and they don't get burned? I can't even begin to tell you how many hundreds of thousands of dollars I've wasted on hiring the wrong attorneys.
Of course, it's really, really easy to do, and it hurts because that's hundreds and thousands of
It
dollars
hurts.
came out of your pocket. It hurts, yes.
It hurts.
So my advice to any business owner is, one, find a lawyer that has experience in what you are looking for. So if you are looking to
Specific. Mhm.
exactly, if
Mhm.
you are looking to set up a franchise, or if you are in the USA, or if you are an international franchise brand and you want to bring your franchise to the USA, look for an attorney that specifically deals with franchise, because franchises, they have their own law, franchise law.
Mhm.
Now, once you find someone, okay, they're able to do that. Now you want to look at, well, how many years have they been in business? How many years have they been practicing? You also want to look at what else have they done? Have they stepped outside of what they are doing? Have they educated? Have they written books? Have they written articles? So you really want to Google just your attorney's name by itself, not the law firm, just the attorney's name, to make sure what else they have done. The biggest advice that I can give to anyone who's looking, to any entrepreneur that is looking for a business or an attorney, is your attorney an entrepreneur themselves? If they
Mm.
are not, they don't know how to communicate with you. They're not going to be on the same page with you. They are just going to bring legal to you. You're not going to get the benefit of the lawyer going through setting up their own business, setting up multiple other businesses, advising them moving forward. And like you said, you're sometimes a psychiatrist for your clients, a psychologist for your clients. Sometimes I have to play that role too, because usually we'll get business owners that really either have inherited the business, they don't know what they're doing, they've never ever been in any corporate positions before. So we're really counseling them from that perspective. And the other big thing is, so make sure that your attorney is an actual entrepreneur themselves. And also,
So I have a
yes,
question on that.
yes,
Because just because an attorney, I classify a doctor this way too, just because they go hang a shingle, put a law firm name on the front door does not make them an entrepreneur. Same thing with a
right.
doctor, you know. So how does somebody decipher, oh, they got their own business, oh, they got a sign on the door, they have partners. How does someone make that determination? Or they just a law, an attorney with a business? Or are they a true entrepreneur? Because just because you own a business does not make you an entrepreneur.
That's why I said, make sure you Google the attorney's name individually, because anything that they have done, it will pop up. So, for example, Michelle, I have I have started and ran my firm for 14 years. I have founded golegalyourself.com. It's an online business. I have founded Pitbulls and Pearls. It's a coaching company. I have been on covers of numerous prestigious magazines. I have won awards for being a leader in the legal industry. And I have a podcast and it's in 26 countries. And so you
And
really,
Michelle's going to be on it, y'all.
yes,
I
you
miss
are. Yes, you
Michelle talks like
are.
I'm going to be on it.
Looking forward to that. Absolutely. So you really want to do your homework on the attorney themselves, not just the firm. But if you are looking for a big law firm, just because you need their name, then go to the big law firms, and their attorneys, they're able to practice in each and every industry. Why? Because they have multiple attorneys. If you find an attorney that says, yeah, I can draft your contract and I can file for your divorce too, they're not the right the attorney for you. They're not. So, some attorneys, and I want to think the best of my colleagues, and I want to think that, we all stay in our lane, but we don't. We absolutely don't. And I have numerous times turned away work because it's like, I'm sorry, there's someone else better out there that will do you a service. It's just not me. But definitely know what you want. Stay in your lane as an attorney, and as an entrepreneur, talk to the attorney. Are they going to be accessible to you, or do you have to go through the secretary, the paralegal, the first year associate, the third year associate, and then eventually to the attorney? Right? Keep that in mind too. How accessible is the attorney? Just certain things like that. So do your
I
due
would say,
diligence.
how long have they been practicing, right? How long they've been practicing? Ask for references. Ask for references. You can also probably check the bar association in that state.
Exactly, the bar association. And also nowadays Google is a beautiful thing, right? The Google reviews, how many Google reviews do they have? What do
Mhm,
they all say? Are they all consistent? Do they
mhm,
look legitimate? So
mhm.
certain things like that. There's so much information nowadays available to anyone that's looking. Just do your due diligence on someone before you hire them.
1,000%. So we have one more question. I just started my business and was wondering if you have any essential legal steps I should take to protect my venture from the beginning on a shoestring budget. I'm adding
Right.
a string budget.
Right. So
Yeah.
usually when someone says to me, "Well, I'm just starting out my business, how much is it going to take?" If you want to do it the correct way and set up a solid legal foundation, you're really looking about anywhere from 5,000 to maybe about 7,000. So really budget about $10,000. And this is just for legal. This does not include spending, thousands and thousands of dollars on a website. If you're going to get sued, now you've spent all your money on a website, and now you're basically going to get sued from all of the world, right?
You can
Because
get sued from trademark infringement and have to start all over and
exactly,
get rid of the company name because most people get a state trademark, not a federal trademark.
exactly. But to really, when you're starting a business, I usually say either you have a business or you have a hobby. Totally understand that money could be an issue, but don't start the business if you don't have a solid legal foundation. If you're going to go into a unrisky business, meaning that you're never going to do business with the public, well, what kind of business is that, right? Are you actually going to make anytime you're doing business with the public, it's a risky business. And it's your responsibility to protect yourself, because now you can get sued from everyone because you have a website which is international, right? As opposed to just, just your county, so to speak. So it really is going to serve you well if you start your business on a solid legal foundation. That way you're not always looking over your shoulder. That way you're not always saying, "Oh, do I have that? Am I protected? If I get sued, am I going to lose everything?"
Well, it's the perfect book they should go get right now if they're starting a business. You should get Exit Rich. Everybody should start with the end in mind, like Stephen Covey says. But should they Go Legal yourself?
Absolutely. So
Okay,
really quickly, with Go Legal Yourself, I talk about the startup phase and what legal documents you need in the startup phase. I
perfect.
talk I talk about the growth phase and what legal documents you need there and what legal steps you need to take. I talk about the establishment phase, and then eventually I talk about the exit phase. So that's the most important phase. This is a question that I usually ask my audience as well. I'm also a public speaker. I'll start off by asking them, how many ways are there to start a business? How many ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's multiple ways. You just start a business. There's multiple ways, right?
Boys.
And then how many ways can you, well, actually, when you start a business, you just start. There's one way. You just start a business. How many ways are there to sell a business? Multiple ways to sell a business. So
But how many ways
get
is there to exit rich?
exactly. That's what I'm saying. When you're exiting rich, you're selling for exiting rich, right? Absolutely. So, yes, Go Legal Yourself. That would be an incredible book. My latest one is called Legal Pearls. That's also available on Amazon. And it's a quick little Bible that has multiple chapters in it. But if you wanted information on should I be a corporation or LLC, you just turn to this chapter and there's the information for you.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so we are out of time here.
Don't say so,
We didn't
Michelle.
even get into the legal lifestyles of your business. So we're definitely going to have you back on so we can talk about the legal lifestyle of your business because I also talk about the lifestyle of a business, which is very similar to a human. So I have the business life cycle. So we're going to compare notes on another podcast going forward. All right. We are out of time. Any last minute go to nuggets?
It was just wonderful meeting you, Michelle. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And seriously, entrepreneurs, this country was founded upon your backs and it will continue to. Just make sure you're standing on a legal foundation.
Absolutely. So let me just tell you something. I love it when I have a podcast when I learn something.
Yay!
And that compares to be rare, because I have been in the industry for so long. So absolutely learned a lot here with Cork Islands, how to asset management protection, etc. So I know that you learned too. So just listen to this podcast over and over again. There are so many great golden nuggets, but more importantly, share it with your fellow entrepreneurs. Share it with your network. Get the message out there. Make sure you get this podcast out there to your friends, your family, anyone that you know can benefit from it, who is really needing asset protection, especially those entrepreneurs. And thank you again for subscribing to Exit Rich. If you haven't subscribed, go in there and subscribe. We have great podcasts that we bring to you every single week. We appreciate you being here every single week with us. And we truly appreciate you, Kelly Bagla, not Bagala, for being on the show. And we will have you on again. So have a great week, everyone. You're fabulous and you're a great entrepreneur.